Hey, what's up? Welcome. This has been thinking about. I'm Jackie, and today I'm going to walk you through how I used an existing top I had to create a new denim top that I'd had in mind for a while. So, with that said, what do we do? What do we need? So, like I said, I used a denim non-stretch fabric for this top. I used it's a pretty thin denim, and it's blue. You can pick whatever color you want. You've got free will. But don't get anything with elastane in it. And because I wanted to use this as a layering piece, I kind of opted for a lighter weight denim. Oh, I should also say that this top doesn't have any darts. And I didn't want to deal with darts. Self-drafting darts is really annoying. I don't have the correct tools for it. Fortunately, I am not... I'm basically the shape of a rectangle, so that was fine for me. But if you are someone who is bigger chested, it may have some gaping on the sides. So you may need to look up a video on how to make darts. To do this, you will need a top that you own that is loose fitting. It cannot be like tighter on the bottom than it is on the top or on the waist. It kind of needs to be straight because the fabric has no stretch, and so you're going to need to get it over the top half of your body to get it then over the rest of you. I used hilariously, I already have this denim Calvin Klein dress I got off Depop, so I used that as my guide. But just use any top. It could also be, it can be a singlet or it can be something with sleeves. Just be conscious of where the seam is. Like for example, on this jumper, my shoulder is really low, so you need something that sits right on your shoulder. So that's what you'll need. You'll also need some top stitching thread. I chose white. Was that the right choice? I don't know. Yep, we get it. Let's move on. Over to you, voiceover Jackie.
Okay, so starting off, you take your top, or in my instance, dress that you're tracing, and you fold it in half. Sometimes I pin the pieces together so it doesn't shift. That's totally up to you. And you lay it on some paper. I like to use this brown paper I got from the reject shop. Rip to the reject shop. I added, I think, about 2 centimeters. You could do 2.5 centimeters as well of seam allowance around the entire thing. With the curved sections, like the shoulders and the neckline, you have to do a lot of measurements because otherwise that curve will warp. You can buy special rulers for curves. I can't be bothered. I just take my time and make sure I do quite a few measurements along that sleeve to kind of keep it in the same ratio as the original curve. Go around, and then that is your seam allowance for the entire outfit. And then once you have that done, you can cut it out. Also, this paper refuses to lay flat. I don't want to talk about it. It was deeply annoying to me. And then you repeat the process for the back. You fold it in half backwards and you trace the outline of the top. Once you do that, you take your fabric, and I'm doing everything on the fold. Lay your pattern piece on the fabric and you cut it out. I'm currently using books as weights. I used to pin the pattern to the fabric, but that was really annoying, and I can't really be bothered to buy fabric weights or just a small weighted object because I have so many books and it seems to be working just fine. I'm doing that so that it doesn't move at all. And so you can judge my choice of books. Highly recommend The Thursday Murder Club. That is not at all a hot take. It is a wildly popular series. I do not give a fuck about the movie. I am not watching that. I wanted something quaint, something very cottage based, very kind of a little bit low budget, and I didn't want the Netflix sheen. Also, Roy, what's his name IRL? Pierce Brosnan, deeply miscast. Anyway, back to this. So once I have cut out my fabric, my back piece I'm actually going to have in 2 pieces. So I folded it in half and I cut just straight down the back. This is a design element I wanted, and because the neckline will be too tight. I liked the idea of having kind of a visible seam that whole way down the back. If you don't want that, you just have to cut the length that you want the neck hole to be. That wasn't well explained. you just cut part way down the back, probably about 10 centimeters, just so your head can fit through the neck hole, because this shirt has no give. Once I did that, I am doing flat fell seams. So I laid the two pieces of the back on top of each other and I just pinned them down that whole way. My camera had autofocus on and it really was choosing when to and when not to use that autofocus. It is what it is. I'm sorry. I think this is the only shot where that's like that. Once I did that, I did a straight stitch down that pinned seam that I had just made using a thread that won't be visible. Oh, I forgot to say, I pinned it only part way down. I think I pinned it about 10 centimeters down. That's because I'm going to have that gap, the top, to fit the neck hole, like fit your head and neck through. Once I did that, I folded the two pieces of fabric over each other so that they capture that raw seam. So you can see what it looks like on the front here. It's doubled over, and I think I show you what it looks like on the back too. Yes, I do. So here you can see there's also no threads visible in the back. There was a little bit of readjusting I needed to do. So I just readjusted it and I just repinned the back. Then I flipped it and pinned the front and took those back pins out. For this next step, you're going to need to use your top stitching thread. I chose to use white. I don't know if that was the right, well, it's more of a cream than a white, but I don't know if that was the right choice. I mean, a lot of companies use brown when they use denim, so you could do that, or you could do a dark navy. But what you do is you're going to do 2 layers of stitches. My first one I kept really close to the edge, and then the second one I used my machine to kind of measure the width. Anyway, and then you repeat the entire thing with the sleeves. The only difference being, of course, that you sew the entire length of the side, not starting further down. For the second side, it's a little bit orcs. So you're kind of creating a tube at this point. So you have to kind of just play with the fabric so it adjusts so that they lay on top of each other. And then I just pinned it, making sure that it wasn't going all the way through to the back of the and then once I did that straight stitch down. You're going to, like, the fabric is going to start to gather. So you just kind of have to make sure your seam is straight and you just readjust where needed so that you kind of get rid of some of that bulk and some of that tension that's being created because you're, once again, sewing a tube. And then once again, you fold it over twice, like fold over the back and the front to encapsulate that raw edge and just pin along once again, making sure you're not catching the back of the top. And then you're going to do your top, change once again to your top stitching thread and do that first line stitch close to the seam. And then the second one using your presser foot, oh my god, I remembered the word, your presser foot as a guide for the width of the second one. So I just line up the presser foot with the edge of the first stitch I did, and that's the width I chose to have. And here you can kind of see the fabric starting to gather, like I mentioned before. So I'm just readjusting as needed. Once you did the sides, you have to attach the shoulders in the exact same way. You pin them overlapping, then you sew, then you top stitch. Just stepping in here to better explain the back part, which I'm about to show you. So as I said, I got lazy. I should have done a button placket, but I didn't want to. So I did a double folded hem, and you'll see how I do it, but I fold over where I sewed up to in the top here. I folded over as best I could. Now you can see I have some raw edges still. That's because once I did the double folded on both sides, which you're about to see, I
am meant to. I haven't done it yet. So what I should do is go up that top stitching over it again. I maybe should unpick it. We'll see if I bother. Just to capture that raw edge. Another thing I forget to mention later on, and I'm going to say now, is I used these press studs. I used these press studs as the way to capture the top because I didn't want to deal with buttons, and I kind of liked how the straight line looked. I got them from Big W. I got like fucking 50 in a pack or something. They're super cheap, and you just hand stitch them on. Anyway, this is me doing the dodgy thing I mentioned, where I just did a double fold of both the back and the front bits and did my top stitching the whole way down. It doesn't matter if you don't get it the whole way down because you're just gonna sew up a little bit over that raw edge that will kind of exist still at the base. When you're folding, just make sure you're folding it straight and also that it is still the width of that seam. And you try and line with that one, you try and line it up with the original seam. Next, we're going to do the neckline. So I made bias using scrap fabric. I have this ruler that's like on a 45-degree angle, and I just use that and I just mark the width I want the bias to be. Looking at this, it looks like it's probably like 5 centimeters wide. And then I just cut off that little extra bit that creates like a triangle because I cut on an angle. And then for both the neckline and the armholes, first thing you do is good sides facing, you pin the whole way around. You're going to see right now the armhole, the next one is going to be for the neckline. I don't know why it's like that, let's just not talk about it. And just make sure everything lines up, and you're going to try and sew as close to that edge as possible because you're going to fold everything over. And kind of you want to reduce the bulk, and also you don't want to throw off your measurements. So just using your regular thread, not your top stitching thread, you're just going to sew that entire way around. And once you've sewn the whole way around the edge, you're actually just going to make a few little snips with scissors, making sure you don't cut all the way through the seam. The reason for this is because when you sew on a curve, when you fold it, it creates tension. And so it can create things like buckling or like the garment not sitting right. So by just doing these small little snips, you will create ease. Once you've done that, you're going to take the binding and the seam, and you're just going to lay everything so it's flat, laying on top of the binding. And on the inside of the seam, you're going to sew the entire way around. By doing this, you're kind of just telling the top what way you want everything to fold, and you won't have that visible binding when you fold everything over. It kind of just makes sure everything pulls to the back. Now let's ignore the sleeve that I really fucked up. I did go in and fix that, but I really just wanted to finish this garment. So you're just going to double fold the bias binding to hide that raw edge and pin that the whole way around. Just try and keep it roughly the same thickness and make sure that it's not visible from the front, because you did that sewing the raw edge to the binding. It should automatically kind of flip over and not be visible, but just double check. Once you did that, just baste it. This is a good guide, and it also reduces the slip. So just take a piece of thread and just do a straight hand stitch the whole way around. Then once you've done that, change to your top stitching thread, and you're just going to do your 2 lines again, starting with the one closest to the edge. Do this because there will be a little bit of movement, so if you do the wider one first, it might create some warping. Okay, once again, I didn't film it, but once you've done your armholes and your neckline, you also need to do your hem. So to do this, I just did a double folded hem, and I just sewed the whole way around with the top stitching thread. I did also forget to say at the beginning that if your top is long and you want it short, you need to measure, or vice versa, you need to measure from your shoulder to the length that you want it to know how long you want to make the shirt, and then add seam allowance. Okay, reveal time. I love how this shirt looks with this visible seams. I like how it has it's easy to layer. It's been a great piece for autumn, and I wore it all through summer. So there you go. Okay, that brings us to the end. Real talk. Am I pulling off this bandana? I wear them around the house when I don't want to do my hair and I want it off my face, but I don't want to tie it up. And my style icon, Gracie Abrams, she pulls them off so well, and I don't think I'm doing that. But especially with a hoodie, but I don't care. Okay? You can let me know. I don't know if this baby pink is my color, but it was what I had around the house. B from BTS is currently also wearing bandanas a lot in the tour, so you know, when you make fun of bandanas, just think about the celebrities you're also making fun of. Yeah, but anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my company, you could always subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, you could always like it. Other than that, TTYL. Oh, that was really millennial of me, but I don't care.